What if I told you that at the very moment Jesus was being crucified, the skies were not the only thing reacting? What if in the unseen realm, beyond the cries of men and the blood-stained earth, two of the most powerful angels in all of creation were watching, moving, and guarding heaven's most sacred mission? Michael, the warrior of God; Uriel, the flame of divine light; and the sun, hanging between earth and eternity. You have heard the story of the crucifixion 100 times, but I promise you, you have never heard it like this. Because hidden behind the veil of Calvary, in realms most people never speak of, something happened that changed everything we thought we knew about that day. So ask yourself, why did the sky turn black at noon? What was really happening in the spirit while Jesus' body hung dying? And what exactly did Michael and Uriel do when the King of Glory was pierced by the Roman spear? Stay with me, because once you hear what these two archangels did at the cross, you will never see Jesus or spiritual warfare the same way again. Most people only see the cross from the ground. They imagine the dusty hill, the Roman soldiers, the jeering crowd, and the bleeding man nailed between two criminals. That is what the eyes could see. But what if you could see in the spirit? What if above that hill called Golgotha, there was a war happening, a war older than time itself? The Bible says that at noon, the sky turned dark. Not cloudy, not dim, but black. For 3 whole hours, creation fell into silence. But this darkness was not natural. It was spiritual. In the unseen realm, the air was trembling. Heaven was watching. Hell was moving. Angels stood silent. Demons gathered in fear. The sky was under siege. Lucifer, the fallen one, sat on his throne of shadows, thinking he had won. This was the moment he had been waiting for since Eden. The prophecy said the seed of the woman would crush his head, and now that seed was hanging helplessly on a cross. He thought he had outsmarted heaven. But he was wrong, because hovering above the cross were 2 of heaven's greatest guardians: Michael, the archangel of war, and Uriel, the archangel of divine wisdom and fire. They were not there as witnesses. They were there as sentinels. Michael's armor glowed with the fire of heaven. His sword, engraved with the names of God, shimmered with power. His wings burned like living stars. Beside him stood Uriel, radiant like the sun, his eyes glowing white with revelation. They were watching their creator die, but not in defeat. They were waiting for a command. The earth trembled. The air shifted. Every demon that had gathered near Calvary began to sense something strange. It was too calm, too quiet, and that silence terrified them. Because demons understand something many humans still do not. Power restrained is far more terrifying than power unleashed. Jesus had power. Real, divine, eternal power. He could have called 12 legions of angels. He could have ended the world with a single breath. But he stayed silent. And in that silence, the heavens shook. Michael's grip tightened on his sword. Uriel's flame burned brighter. They could not move without a command, and yet they felt something stirring in the depths of creation. The plan of redemption, written before time, was unfolding. Then Jesus cried out, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." The sound split through realms. It wasn't a cry of defeat. It was a signal. And Michael knew it. He turned to Uriel, and in that moment, the king, bleeding and broken, gave a command that no human ear could hear. "Hold the line. Guard what is mine." That command traveled through heaven and hell alike. Jesus' body was dying, but his authority was still alive. Michael drew his sword and stood between heaven and the pit, guarding the transaction taking place. Because at that very moment, Jesus was bearing every sin, every curse, every chain of mankind. The greatest spiritual exchange in history was happening, and no demon was allowed to interfere. Michael stood as a wall between the cross and the forces of darkness. No spirit could approach. No power could alter what was being sealed in blood. Uriel's task was different. Where Michael brought war, Uriel brought light. He released divine revelation through time, ensuring that what was happening on that hill would echo forever. His flame reached into generations, awakening truth that would later call Paul, inspire prophets, and open the eyes of nations yet unborn. Then it happened. Jesus breathed his last. The veil of the temple tore in two. The earth quaked. But this was not just a natural event. The veil was more than fabric. It was a barrier between man and God, guarded by angelic forces since the beginning. Now, Michael and Uriel stepped aside. The Lamb had become the bridge. Heaven and earth were one again. But the story didn't end there, because when Jesus died, he descended. He entered the realm of the dead, Sheol. He went to the depths not as a victim, but as a conqueror. Michael followed. Uriel followed. They were not there to rescue him. They were there to witness what no angel had ever seen before. The king entered death uninvited. Hell trembled. The fallen watchers, the chained giants of the flood, the ancient spirits, all felt his presence. Lucifer realized too late what had happened. The one he killed was invading his kingdom. Without an army, without weapons, Jesus marched through the shadows carrying the light of heaven. And when he reached the gates of Sheol, he spoke only once. Open. The gates shook. The locks broke. The realm of the dead fell silent. Michael declared the moment lawful. Uriel unsealed the mysteries of the ages. The saints who had died in faith, Abraham, Moses, David, saw the fulfillment of every promise. Light flooded the darkness. The keys of death and hell were taken. And then Jesus turned, holding those keys, and said, "Time to rise." That was when resurrection began, not at the tomb, but in the depths of Sheol. Death itself was defeated from the inside out. So now you know. When Jesus hung on that cross, he was not abandoned. He was not defeated. He was commanding angels in silence. He was giving orders from agony. Michael stood with sword in hand, guarding the greatest exchange in the universe. Uriel burned with revelation, ensuring every hidden mystery of salvation would be unveiled. And when Jesus said, "It is finished," Michael raised his blade. Uriel sealed the scroll, and eternity shifted. It means you are never alone. Even when life looks dark, heaven is still working. Even when you feel broken, God's command still stands. Angels are still on assignment. Power is still moving. And victory still belongs to the Lamb. Because that day on Calvary wasn't just death. It was divine strategy. It was war disguised as surrender. A king laying down his life to take back everything we lost. Michael knew it. Uriel saw it. And now you do too.